Adventure and Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
Wake up, America! It's time for the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY.com, West Palm Beach's #1 internet radio station. Here's your host, the Pipeman.
Is there anybody out there? Is there anybody out there? When I'm so lonely, so lonely. Anybody out there? Is there anybody out there? When I'm so lonely, so lonely.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio, and I'm extremely excited about our next guest because I got to be at their killer club show at Punk Rock Bowling. And it was a killer show. What a great venue, too, where they played. So let's welcome to the show, Blad from the Dwarves. How are you?
Hey, straight out of Vegas, right? Yeah, that was a fun time with FYP and the Queers. That was we got to spend all weekend with the Queers. It was great. We had some fun, and FYP always legendary.
Yes, and that. You know, I've been going to Vegas since I'm 12 years old, and I never even knew about that container park where you guys played. That was pretty cool. What a great venue.
Yeah, it was a pretty neat place, that outdoor thing, and they had that weird sculpture out front that blew fire and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
I thought it was pretty cool.
And it was nice and open, too, for a punk gig, you know, like there was plenty of room to make a circle pit and, you know, and to not be all hot and sweaty as it was in Vegas anyway.
Right,
yeah. But you guys killed it. I always my hat's always off to artists like you that have been playing live shows forever, you know, and still bring it like you're 15 years old.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no other way to do it, right? I mean, when I'm out there and playing punk rock, it's just, let's do this, you know. It all the production value goes out the window, all of the scruples go out the window, and it's just rock and roll, you know. We never had much of a technical base, you know. It was always just rock and roll, let's do this, and still the same way. So hopefully you know, that it'll continue like that until we drop dead, you know, because I wanted to go out there and just be a tired old band. Like, nobody wants to see that, you know. So
well, you know, it's funny too, like example, Waddy, he's still killing it, but I think he's had 2 heart attacks on stage and he still goes full out, you know.
Yeah, he's determined to die up there. So it's,
I know, right?
You know, that's how the Exploited are going out. I don't know. I would rather die with some people around me that actually care about me.
Right? Exactly.
A bunch of pricks at a rock show, you know. But
I know, right? But you know, it's funny. You're gonna laugh. Okay, so we were talking before the show about, you know, back in the 80s. I was a metalhead and a punk, but I had long hair, so I couldn't show up to one of your shows or the Exploited or the Subhumans or Discharge or GBH or any of the other. I got to go to DRI because they started that whole crossover thing going on. So they started growing their hair out. I'm like, okay, I could go there. I
had long hair in the punk years. Yeah, you had to. You never knew when you were going to get cheap shotted or something was going to happen. You know, it was,
right.
But it was easier to get laid if you had long hair always.
I think so. That, and you know, my dad, he would say stuff about these girls I was hanging out with. I'm like, yeah, why you think I'm into metal, man?
Exactly.
But here's the thing. Now, at this stage, the metalhead women, they look all worn, where the punk women still look hot. In fact, they probably look hotter now than they did then. So yeah, You would love this story. Like there was a place called Posers on Melrose. Okay, famous place to get your spikes, but it was a punk place. So I went with 3 of my punk friends to this place, and they were friends with the owner. So we figured it'd be cool if I can go and get my spikes there. And we're there for like 2 seconds, and my friend walks over to me. He's like, "We have to leave now." And I'm like, I'm like, why? He goes, "I'll tell you outside. We just have to leave right this second." And so like the owners pulled him aside and said, "You better get him out of here within like 10 seconds or we're going to beat his ass."
Yeah, the old rock scene was a little more exclusionary for sure.
Right? That's what's cool today, though. I think it's like we can all be one big happy family and all get together. I always thought it was stupid then anyway, because both the punks and the metalheads were getting our asses kicked by the jocks. Why didn't we band together and kick their ass?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I never had too much problem. I was always a pretty big guy and made it work. But you never knew back then, like what was gonna jump off.
No doubt. But yeah, I mean, but you guys at Punk Rock Bowling at that show, I mean, it might as well have been the 80s. The kind of energy and the show you brought there, like that's kind of what I miss. Even these young kids nowadays, they seem like they're tired already at 22.
Well, we have a young drummer, Snoopak, and we actually met him, got to be like 13, 14 years ago at Punk Bowling. He was like 12 years old singing along to every song. I brought him up on stage. He sang a bunch of songs. And then years later, he came in on drums, so
that's cool.
He's got a cool origin story from Punk Rock Bowling. And we've been going there for a long time and making rock happen. So,
I love it. What a great festival too. Like I do festivals all over the US, UK, and Europe, and I think Punk Rock Bowling is one of the coolest festivals because it just like it invades downtown Las Vegas. And I think when I was talking to Dick from the Subhumans, he's the one that said, yeah, the punk rockers overtaking downtown Vegas is making it look normal. Because the punks are more normal than what's normally there. And the club shows.
Lots of fake tits and bad hamburgers.
Exactly.
I like to go to Vegas when I'm getting paid for it. I have a good time there, but if I have to go there for my amusement, it's usually a little rougher.
Yeah, well, if I go there for my amusement, I call it's like my bank that I can only make deposits that I never withdraw. Like, thank God I was busy at the festival because as I'm walking by the crap table and it's calling my name, I'm like, no, I gotta go do interviews. But all those club shows, the festival, the bowling, like the whole thing, what a concept. Because, you play a lot of festivals. Some it's just like, hey, you play and it's a cool festival and all that. But this has this like different flavor to it.
Yeah, I know. And I sometimes, I rarely play acoustic, but I'll do it at Punk Bowling. And I've done these long kind of marathon lounge shows and stuff. So I'll stretch out and do stuff I don't normally do.
Nice.
Just because it's Punk Bowling and, it's a good setup. People are real diehard fans and I love going out there. So
I love it. So being a musician this many years, having this band for this many years, what's the secret sauce that keeps you going? What is it about you that loves doing this every day?
I always just wanted to make a great record and play a great show. And I think along the way you get a little warped and, you want to make a living and you want to get respected and you want to do some things that people do in other jobs. And it's a very elusive goal. So I think when you just get back to working on what's important, which is making a great record, playing a great show, you can go on forever. You got to have the right people around you and the right attitude. I think if you want it to be like a career, or you want to get your management working, or you want to get this or that, then it's going to be a lot more difficult and a lot more ripe for frustration. So the best thing to do is to really bear down on what's important. Make a great record, play a great show. If you can be satisfied by that, I think you're way ahead of the game. If you can't be satisfied by that, you should really get into a different line of work that's more where the rewards are more in line with the actual work that you do.
I say that all the time. It's like this industry, if you're not having fun, it's the wrong industry. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people are not having fun, and I don't understand them. I mean, I do it for the same reason I did it when I was 16, but it was hard to get there. You got to go all the way around and figure it out. And it's not easy, but at a certain point you realize, wow, I got into this because I like making a good record, playing a good show, or listening to a good record and going to see a good show. And so, it's not much more complicated than that. But when you make it more complicated and there's more people involved that got their beaks in there trying to get their piece, then it gets more and more difficult.
And so what would you say in all these years, if there were one story, good, bad, wild, crazy, whatever it is, that would first come to the top of your head over all these years in this journey in music, what would it be?
Oh boy. I mean, the part that really made me happy was when it all kind of came around and I could get good people to play with me. I always had some talented friends and some people around, but at a certain point when I started meeting, guys like producers like Eric Valentine or Andy Carpenter, or just players like Josh Freese or Nick Oliveri, or these different people, and I started realizing that I could make the record that I wanted to make, without being affiliated with some big label or having a lot of money behind it. I just by being me and having done what I had done, I could talk to people and, get some make even better records and have even cooler shit happen. And that was really important to me. That it took a while to get there. And, once I got there, that was great for me. I mean, the drugs and sex stories are great and fun, and they keep you rolling, but to be able to make these records for year after year, decade after decade, and feel like, wow, this is a great record. I really like this. I don't feel like we're losing it or losing a step or can't quite do it. To be able to do that deep into your 50s is a great feeling, and then a couple years ago, I made my solo record, the introducing Ralph Champagne. And so I kind of made a new character and played different kind of music, more kind of retro or country-ish or lounge-ish, kind of more listenable American music. And again, just being able to have these big switches laid in your life and make a cool record and do something that you believe in, there's really no substitute for it. I think people get older and they care less and less about what they're doing, even if they get paid for it. And so to really enjoy making those records and to go in there and look forward to it. And, that's really the where the fun is for me.
And I love too hearing stuff like what you're talking about with your solo record, because people have this concept that aren't familiar with punk, but just because you're into punk doesn't mean you're not into other things. And if you're a musician, I would think you would always want to experiment with no matter what it is. It doesn't have to be one specific way. And as you've been doing it for so many years, like, you do kind of want to do more things as you get better at your craft or as things change in life. And you don't want to make the same exact song record that you did 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of times in music, there's gold in the middle of the road, right? You do what you've already done or what people expect. And it's initially easier, and it's just easier to pull off and easier for people to swallow and digest, But again, we were always a little in your face and disturbing to people. And so when you disturb them one way, then they expect you to continue disturbing them that same way. We're going to keep screaming fuck and have the nudity and whatever. But we sort of kept that element and up the production. And, then people would say, you're making too nice sounding a record, or it's too pop in the song structure, or it's this or that. So then we'd turn around and make something even nastier. And so it's some hardcore song right next to a pop song, and right next to a garage song, right next to a rock and roll song. And so, you always want to confound people's expectations and come up with something that's different that nobody's expecting. And again, it depends what kind of rewards you're looking for. The reward I'm looking for is to make another cool record that's different than the last one. But if but if you're looking for just to have your old fans still like you and everything hang on the way it is, then you just keep making the same record over and over. And in punk, they do that a lot. To the
which is funny, because what you were just describing before to me sounds more punk than that. Like,
right, exactly. The Beatles were a great punk band in my mind because they never stopped making an interesting record, and they always kept throwing in new elements every time. Yep. You thought you knew what they sounded like. When they went psychedelic, everybody thought it was going to be the death of their career, and then they kind of went more kind of Laurel Canyon acoustic-y, and everybody thought that was going to be the end. And if you have to try and do every new division well, you got to, it's not enough to just go, well, now I got an acoustic guitar and a hat on, so I guess I'm country, or whatever. It's important that you kind of suspend your disbelief and really try and make not just a different kind of record, but a great record. And not just a different kind of a show, but a great show, and you could sort of try and deliver that as best you can, but yeah, punk can be very reactionary and can just hang on to its same thing. And that never interested me. I don't come from California. Punk was never, the popular thing. I came from Illinois. People would throw shit at you if you looked that way, or if you were walking down the street. I mean, there was a lot of these bands still bigger in the punk scene. It was like punk was the biggest thing when they went to high school, and then they just kind of kept going. It's like that. Yeah. I don't know that world at all. It's all, to me, you just find your own way. You're your own manager. You're your own producer, you're your own songwriter, and you figure stuff out. And then, along the way, more and more good people started coming into the orbit, and we could do more and more interesting stuff,
I love it. Tell everybody how they can reach out to you guys on the web, on socials, get all your merch, shows, all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, if you go to thedwarves.com, then you can't go to dwarves.com because that brings you like elves and wizards and shit. But if you go to thedwarves.com, you get us. So there's all kinds of nudity and all kinds of cool shit, and you can order records and all kinds of merch and all that stuff. You just go to thedwarves.com and you'll find our social media. We're up on Instagram, and they're always warning us about this or that, but we're up on Facebook, Twitter, and whatever they got.
Love it. And so, is there anything else you have upcoming that you want the listeners to know about before we go?
Well, yeah, there's the Dwarves concept album came out in November, and that was quite successful. People liked it a lot, and it was really, kind of a return to the, Dwarves Must Die era. Lots of weird production, lots of weird different genres, lots of guests, lots of different people. And so we got an EP coming out, 7 brand new songs, and then a couple of remixes from the concept album. So that's called The Dwarves Keep It Real. And of course, it's got a great cover, beautiful girl, and all this kind of stuff. So that's coming out in late June. So you want to look for the Keep It Real mini LP. And then, we'll be in Europe in July and August. We'll be supposed to be in Australia in November. That should be fun. And so, yeah, there's a few things on the horizon and some cool records. Another really cool one is that we went back and got, Blood, Guts, and Pussy was our first sort of notorious record from 1990. We went back and got the recordings that we made right before that. We went into the studio and just did a lot of the material that became Blood, Guts. We just performed it live in the studio, no overdubs. And so that stuff is finally going to get released now, something like, close to 40 years later. So that's going to be neat. It's coming out as Sunshine, Lollipops, and Rainbows. So that should be out next year. So, yeah, always finding cool stuff in the vault and doing new stuff.
Well, I love hearing stuff like this because, man, you're just keeping it alive and still bringing great art to us. And thanks for doing it. Thanks for being at Punk Rock Bowling, and thanks for being on the Adventures of Pipeman.
Well, thanks for talking to me. We will talk to you, Pipeman. Pipe on. Hit that pipe.
You got it.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
You're tuned to the sounds of the Pipeman on W4CY Radio. This is Blag the Ripper representing the Dwarves rock legend.